The slap echoed through the ancestral hall like a gunshot. Gasps rippled across the long table. Crystal glasses trembled. The engagement ring hit the polished wood with a sharp clink that seemed louder than it should have been. I will not beg to be chosen. Soraya Cole's voice cut through the silence, calm and final. She turned toward the massive doors at the end of the hall, her spine straight, her steps measured. The room held its breath. Then a chair scraped against marble. If she leaves, Kang Daevin said quietly, I leave. Every head turned toward him. He stood at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. His fingers moved to the signet ring on his right hand, the one that had been worn by 3 generations of Kang patriarchs. He pulled it off. A name that cannot protect my wife is not mine. He set the ring down beside his untouched glass and walked toward the door. Toward her. The hall erupted into chaos behind them. But that was hours from now. If you've ever been told to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort, like this video right now. Because what you're about to see proves that real love never demands that sacrifice. Hours earlier, the banquet had begun with all the precision of a military operation. Sariah had arrived exactly on time, wearing a deep emerald dress that respected tradition without surrendering to it. The fabric moved like water when she walked, elegant but not apologetic. The seating arrangement told her everything she needed to know. The long table stretched beneath chandeliers that cost more than her foundation's annual budget. Daevin's father sat at the head, his mother to the right, uncles, aunts, cousins arranged by rank and favor. Daevin himself was 3 seats down on the left side. Sariah was placed at the far end, past the youngest cousins, past even the family attorney. She took her seat without comment. She had expected this. Daevin's eyes found hers across the distance. She gave him the smallest nod. I'm fine. She was fine. She had walked into worse rooms than this and walked out with her dignity intact. But Daevin stood up, walked to Sariah and whispered to her, I would have sat with you, but father insisted I sit beside him. Indeed, his father had insisted, saying he had to sit next to him as his heir. Sariah nodded. She was okay with that. She told Daevin she was fine. The first course arrived. Conversation flowed in Korean, shifting to English only when absolutely necessary. Sariah understood more than they assumed. Her Korean wasn't fluent, but it was functional. She caught the sideways references, the carefully phrased questions that weren't questions at all. Daevin's aunt, a woman whose elegance beamed the room, smiled across the table. It must be overwhelming, Miss Cole. All these traditions. So different from what you're accustomed to. The table quieted slightly. Waiting. Every culture has its complexity, Sariah replied evenly. I find that people who respect their own traditions usually extend that respect to others as well. The aunt's smile thinned. Of course. Though some guests misunderstand tolerance for acceptance. Soft laughter traveled down the table like a wave. Sariah set down her chopsticks with deliberate care. And some families confuse fear with tradition, she said. The laughter died. Silence pressed down on the room like a physical weight. Daevin's father stopped mid-reach for his glass. His mother's face went carefully blank. Then Kang Sorrel stood up. Daevin's sister was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful. Perfect hair. Perfect skin. A dress that probably required 3 fittings. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. You speak boldly, Sorrel said, walking slowly around the table toward Sariah. For someone temporary. Sariah didn't stand, didn't move, just watched her approach and smiled. Do you know how many women mistook my brother's attention for destiny? Sorrel's voice was soft, almost kind. That made it worse. They all thought they were different. Special. She stopped beside Sariah's chair. They all thought they could change him. Change us. Sorrel's hand came up fast. And how dare you even talk back at Gomo? The slap cracked across Sariah's cheek, snapping her head to the side. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Sariah paused, smiled and turned her face back. Slowly. Her cheek was already reddening, but her eyes were absolutely calm. She stood. Her hand moved with the same speed Sorrel's had. The return slap was controlled, precise and perfectly placed. Sorrel stumbled back, hand flying to her face, eyes wide with shock. "Respect is mutual," Sariah said quietly. The room exploded. Voices overlapped in Korean and English. Daevin's father was on his feet. His mother looked faint. Uncles were shouting. Sariah reached down and pulled the engagement ring from her finger. The diamond caught the chandelier light as she set it carefully on the table in front of her empty plate. "I will not beg to be chosen." She turned toward the doors. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing was steady. She had meant every word. Daevin hadn't moved. He sat in his chair, watching her walk away. His face showed nothing. She thought, so this is how it ends. He chose bloodline. I expected nothing less. Her hand touched the door handle. Behind her, a chair scraped. "If she leaves." Daevin's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I leave." Sarayah's hand froze on the handle. The shouting stopped. She heard his footsteps, calm and measured, crossing the marble floor. Heard something small and metallic hit wood. "A name that cannot protect my wife is not mine." She turned. He stood in the center of the room, his family signet ring lying beside his wine glass. Every eye in the hall was fixed on him. He didn't look at them. He looked at her. Then he walked to the door, opened it, and held it for her. They walked out together. The night air hit them like cold water. Sariah made it down the front steps of the ancestral hall before the anger caught up with her. She spun on him. "You said nothing." Daevin stopped 3 feet away. "I know. They seated me like a servant. Your aunt spoke to me like I was some naive child. Your sister struck me in front of your entire family." Her voice was rising. She didn't care. "And you sat there. Silent." "Yes." "That's all you have to say?" "Yes." He met her eyes steadily. "If I had defended you immediately, they would say you hide behind me. That you need my protection to survive in this world. So you let them humiliate me?" "No," his voice was quiet but firm. "I let them expose themselves." Sariah laughed bitterly. "How strategic of you. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You wanted to see if I could handle it. If I was strong enough for your world." She took a step closer. "Well, congratulations. I passed your test. But I didn't sign up to be tested." "That's not what I meant." He ran a hand through his hair, the first crack in his composure. "If I had spoken first, your strength would have been invisible. They would have seen only my power. But you stood on your own. You answered them with your own voice. And you were extraordinary." Sarayah's anger wavered. Just slightly. "And when you slapped her back," he continued, something almost like admiration in his voice, "every person in that room learned that you don't need me to protect you. You can protect yourself." "I shouldn't have to." "No. You shouldn't." He took a breath. "But now they know. The woman I love is not someone who can be bullied into submission. She's not someone who needs permission to be powerful." The anger was draining out of her, replaced by exhaustion. "You could have warned me." "Would you have come if I had?" She was silent. "You would have said we should wait," he said softly. "Work on them gradually. Win them over slowly. And my sister would have used that time to build opposition. My aunt would have recruited allies. And by the time we tried again, the resistance would be organized. So you threw me to the wolves. I walked into the fire with you. And when you proved you could survive it, I chose you over everything I was raised to value." He gestured back at the hall. "My name. My family. My inheritance." Sariah closed her eyes. She was tired. So tired. "I need to think." "I know." He didn't move closer, didn't try to touch her. "I'll have a car take you home." "I can get my own car." "I know you can. I'm offering anyway." She looked at him for a long moment. This man who had just walked away from everything for her. This man who had also sat silent while his family tried to break her. "Fine," she said finally. "The car." He pulled out his phone, made a quiet call in Korean. 2 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. We'll talk tomorrow, he said. Maybe. He almost smiled. Maybe. She got into the car. As it pulled away, she looked back once. He was still standing there, watching her leave, hands in his pockets. Alone in front of his family's ancestral hall, having just renounced his birthright. For her. She turned away and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. 3 months earlier, none of this had seemed remotely possible. Sariah had been in her office at the Foundation for Cultural Exchange, buried in grant applications, when her assistant knocked. There's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's about the Itaewon development project. Sariah looked up, irritated. Tell whoever it is that we don't take meetings with developers. Our position on that project is public record. I told him. He said he'd wait. Then he'll be waiting a long time. But curiosity got the better of her. 20 minutes later, she went to the lobby. Kang Daevin stood by the window, looking at the photos on the wall. Photos of students who'd received scholarships. Families who'd gotten legal help with immigration paperwork. Community events. He wore a suit that probably cost $5,000. No security. No assistant. Just him. You're wasting your time, Sariah said. We're not changing our position. He turned. I'm not here to change your position. I'm here to understand it. You want to understand why displacing 300 immigrant families is wrong. I want to understand where I failed to see it. That stopped her. She studied him. Who are you? Kang Daevin. My company owns the development. She knew the name, of course. Everyone in Seoul knew the Kang family. Old money. Political connections. The kind of power that didn't usually bother with explanations. So you came personally. Would you have taken a meeting with my assistant? No. Then I came personally. She crossed her arms. We published a 20-page analysis of your project's impact. If you actually want to understand, read it. I did. That's why I'm here. He gestured to her office. May I have 10 minutes? Against her better judgment, she gave him 15. He asked intelligent questions. He didn't make excuses. When she pointed out specific failures in the impact assessment, he took notes. Actual notes, in neat handwriting, in a leather notebook. If you're wrong, he said when she finished, I'll correct you. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it. Empty words are easy. Yes. Which is why I'll prove it with actions. He stood. Thank you for your time. He left. She expected intimidation after that. Legal threats. Pressure on her donors. It was what usually happened when you challenged powerful people. Instead, 2 weeks later, the development company announced major revisions to the project. Increased relocation assistance. Community input sessions. Protection for existing small businesses. Her assistant brought her the news. Did you see this? Sariah read the announcement twice. Then 3 times. He actually did it, she said, more to herself than anyone else. A week after that, Daevin showed up at one of their community events. He stayed in the back. Didn't make a speech. Didn't seek recognition. Just listened. He came to the next one. And the one after that. The 4th time, Sariah walked over to him. Why do you keep coming? Because you don't treat me like a throne. She didn't know what to say to that. Everyone in my life wants something, he continued. Power. Access. Connection. You just wanted me to do the right thing. Most people want that. Most people are afraid to demand it. He looked at her directly. You weren't. That was when she started seeing him differently. Not as the heir to some untouchable empire, but as a man who was tired of being surrounded by people who only saw his name. He pursued her carefully, patiently. He showed up. He asked her about her work. He listened when she talked about the families they helped, the barriers they faced, the small victories that kept her going. He never pressured her romantically, never used his influence to corner her. Just consistently, persistently, chose to be present. 3 months of coffee conversations, late dinners after events, walks through Itaewon where he asked about the neighborhood's history, and actually cared about the answers. She fell for him slowly. Not for his power. Not for his name. For the quiet way he revised his assumptions when presented with better information. For how he remembered the names of people he met at her events. For the fact that he showed up even when there was nothing in it for him. One night over dinner she asked him, "Why me? You could have anyone." "Everyone bows," he said simply. "You don't. Respect is mutual." He smiled. Exactly. That was when she knew. This wasn't infatuation. This was something real. But real didn't mean easy. His world was built on hierarchy, tradition, and the kind of power that demanded absolute loyalty. He had never publicly defied his family. Never challenged the structure he'd been raised in. Until her. She challenged him constantly. Questioned his decisions. Pushed back when he retreated into the safety of authority. Once early on he said, "Everyone bows eventually." "To power maybe," she replied. "But respect is mutual. If you want mine, you don't command it. You earn it." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. Actually laughed, something she'd never heard him do. "What?" she asked. "Everyone else agrees with me. Even when I'm wrong." "Then everyone else is failing you." Their love grew from that. From debate. From the friction of two people who refused to diminish themselves to make the other comfortable. She never wanted to be chosen. She wanted to be seen. And he saw her. Now, sitting in the back of the car heading away from the ancestral hall, Sariah let herself feel the weight of what had just happened. He had seen her stand up for herself, and instead of being embarrassed or angry, he had stood up too. Not to protect her, but to stand with her. The distinction mattered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Daevin. "I meant what I said." She stared at it for a long time before typing back, "I know." The next morning, Daevin went to his sister's apartment. She answered the door with a bruise blooming across her cheek. The same cheek Sariah had slapped. "You will apologize," he said without preamble. Sorrel's eyes flashed. "She struck me." "After you struck her first. She insulted our family at our table." She responded to provocation with truth. "You responded with violence." He stepped into the apartment, closing the door behind him. And then she responded with equal measure. "Which is her right. She has no rights at that table." "She has every right. She's going to be my wife." "Not if I have anything to say about it." "You don't." His voice was cold now. "But you will apologize. Privately. Sincerely. Or you will find yourself without access to the family accounts you've been using to fund your lifestyle." Sorrel went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me." They stared at each other. "She'll never accept it," Sorrel said finally. "An apology from me means nothing to her." "Then you'll have to make it mean something." He left before she could respond. But when he tried to arrange a meeting, Sariah refused. "No," she said over the phone. "She's willing to apologize." "I don't care if she's willing. I'm not interested." Sariah's voice was firm. "If she cannot respect me freely, I don't need it forced from her. It's about reconciliation. It's about performance. She'll say sorry because you demanded it, and she'll resent me even more for forcing her hand. No thank you." "Then what do you want?" "Silence." "I want time," Sariah said finally. "I want to think about whether I can live in a world where your sister hates me, where your family tolerates me at best, where every gathering will be a battlefield. It won't always be like this. You don't know that. I know that I love you. I love you too." Her voice softened. "That's why this is so hard." They agreed to space. A week of thinking. Daevin respected it, even though it killed him. But his sister didn't stay quiet. Sorrel went to someone she thought could help. Someone who understood what it meant to lose Kang Daevin. Yuna answered her door with surprise. "Sorrel?" "We need to talk," Sorrel said. "About the woman who's ruining both our lives." Yuna had dated Daevin for 2 years. She came from the right family. Had the right education. Understood the world they lived in. Everyone assumed they would marry. Then he met Sariah, and Yuna became history. What do you want? Yuna asked carefully. I want her gone. And I think you do too. Yuna let her in. What Sorrel didn't tell Daevin, what nobody in the family knew, was that Yuna's brother was Kim Jinho. And Kim Jinho ran the second largest underground operation in Seoul. Daevin and Jinho had been in a Cold War for 3 years. Competing influence networks, territorial disputes. Nothing violent, but the tension was real. And Sorrel had been watching Jinho for months. At events. Across rooms. He was everything Daevin wasn't. Dangerous. Uncomplicated. Willing to break rules. She found him attractive. If Daevin got back together with Yuna, alliances would shift. Jinho would be family, in a way. And Sorrel could finally pursue something for herself instead of managing her brother's image. I can help, Sorrel told Yuna. But we have to be smart. They fabricated a scandal. Careful. Detailed. Sariah's foundation received donations from dozens of sources. Most were clean. But they found 3 that could be made to look suspicious. Corporations with tangential connections to money laundering. Amounts that could be questioned. They built a narrative. The black woman running a cultural foundation was actually a front for illegal activity. She was using Daevin. Using his name to legitimize dirty money. They planned to leak it to 3 media outlets simultaneously. The story would explode before Sariah could respond. But they underestimated her. Sariah had built her foundation with the assumption that someone would eventually try to destroy it. She kept perfect records. Every donation sourced. Every expense documented. Third-party audits quarterly. When her attorney caught wind of unusual inquiries about the foundation's finances, she didn't wait. She called a press conference. It has come to my attention, Sariah said calmly, facing a room full of journalists, that there may be attempts to question the integrity of our funding sources. Rather than wait for speculation, I'm releasing 5 years of complete financial records. Every donor. Every transaction. Every audit. She posted it all online. Transparent. Searchable. Undeniable. The trap collapsed before it could spring. But Sariah's attorney was thorough. He traced the inquiries back. Found the connections. And he brought the evidence to Daevin. Daevin sat in his office looking at the documents. Proof that his sister had coordinated with his ex-girlfriend. That they'd tried to destroy Sariah's reputation. And worse, that Sorrel had been in contact with Kim Jinho, his rival. He felt something cold settle in his chest. The next family council was mandatory. His father had called it, concerned about the public nature of Sariah's press conference. Daevin arrived early. He brought documents. The family filed in. His father. His mother. Uncles. Aunts. Sorrel, looking nervous but defiant. This situation, his father began, requires discussion. The woman's very public display has brought attention to our family. She defended herself against a coordinated attack, Daevin said quietly. An attack you have no proof of, an uncle interjected. Daevin placed the folder on the table. I have significant proof. He laid it out. Call records. Financial transfers. Messages between Sorrel and Yuna. Contact between Sorrel and Kim Jinho. The room went silent. While you question her integrity, Daevin said, his voice controlled but cold. My own sister negotiates with my opposition. His father's face went hard. Sorrel. She said nothing. The woman you accuse, Daevin continued, has never betrayed me. She's never lied to me. She's never used my name for personal gain. She built everything she has with her own hands. He looked at his sister. Can you say the same about blood? Sorrel's face crumpled. You will cease all contact with Kim Jinho, Daevin said. You will make no public statements about Sariah. And your access to family financial privileges is suspended. Indefinitely. You can't, she started. I can. And I am. His father looked between them. Then nodded slowly. Agreed. The power shift was complete. But Daevin took no pleasure in it. 2 days later, Sorrel appeared at Soraya's office. No appointment. Just waiting in the lobby. Soraya's assistant looked uncertain. She says it's personal. Sariah considered refusing, but curiosity won. Send her in. Sorrel entered slowly. She looked smaller somehow. Tired. I came to apologize, she said without sitting down. Your brother demanded it. He did. But that's not why I'm here. Sorrel took a breath. I misjudged you. Sariah waited. I thought you were using him. That you saw power and wanted a piece of it. Sorrel's voice was quiet. I thought you would hurt him. And now I think you're the only person who doesn't want something from him. She met Soraya's eyes. And I think I tried to destroy something real because I was jealous. Sariah studied her, looking for lies, for performance. She saw only exhaustion and something like shame. Do better, Sariah said finally. Sorrel nodded. I will. She left. Sariah sat alone in her office for a long time after that. She called Daevin. Your sister came by. I didn't send her. I know. Sariah paused. I think I'm ready to talk. When? Tonight. They met on his balcony. The city spread out below them, millions of lights against the dark. I need to ask you something, Sariah said. And I need the truth. Always. That night at the banquet. Why did you really stay silent? Daevin was quiet for a moment. Because I knew they would test you. And I knew you would stand. That's what you said before. It's still true. He turned to face her. But it's not complete. She waited. I wasn't choosing between you and them, he said slowly. I was letting them choose how small they wanted to be. Because if I had defended you immediately, they would have made it about my authority. My decision. They would have spent years trying to undermine you, waiting for me to change my mind. And this way they know. You don't need my permission to be powerful. You don't need my protection to survive. You're not my weakness. You're your own strength. Sariah felt something unlock in her chest. I never wanted to be chosen. I know. I wanted to be seen. You are. He moved closer. You weren't chosen, Sariah. You were always the standard. From the moment you told me to do better, you became the measure of what I wanted in my life. She kissed him then. Not urgently. Not desperately. Just certainly. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. So we're doing this. We're doing this. Your family might never fully accept me. Then they'll adjust. The empire doesn't get to stay the same when you enter it. She laughed softly. That's a lot of pressure. You've been handling pressure your entire life. This is just pressure with better funding. The wedding was held in the ancestral hall. The same hall where Sorrel had slapped her. Where she'd placed her ring on the table and walked away. But today, the seating was different. Sariah walked down the center aisle, past family members who stood as she passed. Some looked genuinely pleased. Others looked resigned. A few still looked skeptical. She didn't care. Daevin waited at the front. No hesitation in his eyes. No doubt. The ceremony was traditional but adapted. They honored his family's customs. They honored hers. They created new ones together. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, the silence was complete. They exchanged vows. His in Korean, then English. Hers in English, then Korean. She promised to challenge him. He promised to listen. She promised to stand beside him. He promised to stand beside her. They kissed. The hall erupted in applause. Polite. Measured. But real. Outside, hidden among the trees that lined the ancestral hall's driveway, Li-Yuna watched through tears. It should have been me, she whispered. It was never going to be you, her brother said behind her. Kim Junho stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the celebration through cold, calculating eyes. He pulled out a handkerchief and wiped his sister's tears with mechanical efficiency. He chose weakness, Junho said quietly. That makes him vulnerable. She's not weak. She's an opening. Everything he claimed not to care about, He just made the center of his world. He turned away from the hall. That's exploitable. Yuna looked at him. Inside the hall, Soraya and Daevin stood together, accepting congratulations. She caught his eye across a conversation with his uncle. He smiled. Not the controlled expression he usually wore in public. A real smile. She smiled back. They weren't fighting for acceptance anymore. They weren't proving themselves. They were simply in love, surrounded by people who were learning to adjust. The Empire did not accept her. It was adjusted. And that made all the difference. If you stayed until the end, you're my people. This is what real love looks like. Messy, complicated, but never asking you to be less than you are. Like this video if it resonated. Subscribe so you don't miss more thrilling stories like this. Comment and tell me. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between love and self-respect? What did you do? And please, share this with someone who needs to remember their worth isn't negotiable. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.